evening, brothers and sisters. My name is Patrick Crowley. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the Rhode Island Afl-Cio, and it is my duty to call to order the 2022 COPE Convention of the Rhode Island Afl-Cio. Will you please stand so we can say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And welcome to the most unionized corner in the state of Rhode Island. Of course, we have Bally's right here, which was built union and is staffed union with Laborers Local 271, Laborers Local 711, Teamsters Local 251, Unite Here Local 26, IATSE Local 23, IBEW Local 99, UA Local 51, and the Carpenters Union. But it's not just here. When I say the most unionized corner of the state, because right down the street next door is CCRI, which is wall-to-wall with NEA Rhode Island members. And right next to that is Davies High School, which is wall-to-wall with NEA and AFSCME members. And right around the corner from that is Lincoln Middle School, which is wall-to-wall with RIFT members. And right across the street, though you don't want to run into them on the way out, is the Troopers Barracks, who are members of the Rhode Island Troopers Association. So it is really an honor to be here with so many union brothers and sisters and siblings to celebrate this important night. Before I kick things over to George to get us started here, I just want to say a couple of quick thank yous. First and foremost, to the staff at the Rhode Island Afl-Cio, in particular Cheryl Mascarelli, who put all of this hard work together. So if we could give Cheryl a particular round of applause. And Cheryl had a great deal of help from Mark Mancino, from Autumn Guillot, Erica Hammond and Mike Rolls, and a number of other folks from the Institute for Labor Studies who did all of the hard work in putting the background and all of the materials together. So thank you so much for all of your help. And I know throughout the program today we're going to be recognizing a lot of individuals for their efforts on behalf of working men and women in Rhode Island. But in particular, I just want to highlight someone who's very special to the Rhode Island Afl-Cio, and that is Priscilla De La Cruz, who was my partner in crime at the Climate Jobs of Rhode Island project that we have going. So Priscilla, we just want to say thank you, welcome, and thank you for all of your hard work on behalf of our members across the state. Brothers and sisters, the state of the labor movement in Rhode Island is strong. We are organizing new shops every single day. We are negotiating great contracts. We are winning important electoral fights up and down the state, and we are taking the fight to the street like we saw last week in Pawtucket with the Teamsters at the DHL strike. We are on the march, and we are going to continue to be on the march until all working men and women in this state have a voice in a job, safety at work, and make sure that they continue to live a working class life here in Rhode Island. So without further ado, let me turn things over to our president, Brother George Nee.
Thank you, Patrick. And again, thank you for everything you've been doing and what you're going to do in the future. This is what democracy looks like. Your participation in the political process, from endorsing candidates, to going door knocking, to doing mailings, to doing phone calls, to voting, to getting your friends and neighbors to vote. This is why our political organization is so respected. It's because of your efforts and the people that you represent. So we're only halfway. We got to the Super Bowl, but we haven't won yet. We have one more game to play in November, and we're gonna win that game. So once again, thank you very much for everything you've done. With that, the first order of business is the appointment of the convention committees, which are in your packet. Is there a motion to accept the second? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The committees have worked already and they've been seated. The next order of business is the adoption of the rules. The chair will recognize Brother Paul McDonald, Chair of the Rules Committee.
Good evening, brothers and sisters, guests. The Rules Committee met this afternoon in the Wicked Good Bar and Grill. What a great place for a meeting. I had a good time there. The Rules Committee was made up of Joe Andrioli from the Rhode Island State Association of Firefighters, Danny Bianco Jr. from the Laborers Union 1033, Chris Buffrey, IBEW 2323, Kelly Enriquez, Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals 1075, Ralph Azosky from NAGE, IBPO 5000, Phil Fogarty, Utility Workers 310, and Val Lawson, East Providence Education Association, NEA, Rhode Island. The committee moves that the rules be adopted as presented, and I'll leave that for the chair to take the vote.
Is there a motion to accept the rules? Second, okay. A second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The rules are adopted. Okay, thank you. Our first order of business today is we have a special guest speaker, Courtney Nicolado, who is the president and CEO of the United Way of Rhode Island. The United Way and the Afl-Cio, nationally and locally, have had a strong partnership for a lot of years. Do you have a figure? You do? Okay. Oh, she's going to share it. That's good. I know it's a lot of years, and it's been very productive. And I have to say, with Courtney's leadership, it has become even stronger, even better. The United Way has been tremendous advocates in the community on issues that we have long supported. They've taken a tremendous leadership in housing, in making sure that people are eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit. Paula Mansue from the United Way is the liaison to the Rhode Island AFL-CIO. And we also have the honor of having Chris Sabatoni from the Laborers Union sitting on the board of the United Way here in Rhode Island. They have changed their focus. They are much more involved in advocacy now than they were before, which is something that we obviously appreciate and do all the time too. So without any further ado, the chair recognizes Courtney Nicolado for some remarks. Okay.
Good evening. All right, we can try again. Good evening.
Good evening.
There we go. We got lots to do, y'all. We need to be energetic, right? And I know we have that in this room. And so thank you to Patrick and to George, and good evening, Labor family. It's great to be here in what I believe is such an incredibly important time for our state. For 80 years, the labor community and the United Way have worked together in support of communities across the country. And I think that there's many reasons why an 80-year relationship has worked. So I'm going to share those with you. One is that we firmly believe, collectively, both of us, that in order to make real change in our community, it takes collaboration. I'm abundantly grateful to have Chris Sabatoni sitting on our board and Patrick Crowley sitting on our community advisory board, and they show us each and every day what collaboration truly means. I am also really grateful for Paula Manso, who sits as our labor liaison at executive committees every single time to make sure that we know how to best support and serve our labor partners. I'm also excited that the United Way is involved in Climate Jobs Rhode Island in support of building affordable and sustainable housing for Rhode Island's workforce. This coalition of 30+ organizations from a wide variety of sectors are committed to curbing climate change in Rhode Island and creating high-quality, high-paying jobs in the process. My opinion, that's a win-win. Secondly, we collectively believe that we have work to do in order to make Rhode Island equitable for all. Our government leaders are incredible partners in this effort, many to which are here today. But it also includes our amazing teachers who work tirelessly every day for Rhode Island students, to our union leaders who are focused on opportunities and creation of economic mobility opportunities for family in our state. In appreciation for our labor leaders who commit to building equity in our community every day, the United Way of Rhode Island also recognizes each year one labor leader who goes above and beyond the call of duty with our Dante Malo Leadership Award. On October 12th, at our annual celebration at Farm Fresh Rhode Island, make sure you sign up, we're excited that we will be bestowing the Dante Malo Labor Award to Pat Quinn of SEIU 1199. We are thrilled to honor Pat in this way, and we look forward to celebrating with you all on October 12th. And third, I believe that both our labor family and the United Way of Rhode Island believes that your voice matters. That's why you're here. That's why you're doing this incredible activity today, because you believe in what my favorite saying is, democracy is not a spectator sport. Democracy takes all of us lifting up our voices. It also, and the important issues that are facing our state, and requires all of us, not just some of us, to head to the polls, to knock on doors, and support the candidates that are important to us and to our work. We have to go to our neighbors, our colleagues, and friends and ask the question, do you have a plan to vote in November? And if they don't, you can call or have them call 211, because we're partnering with the Secretary of State's office to be the voter information hotline for the state. We will help them build their plan and ensure that they have everything they need to cast their vote in November. 211 is available in 24/7, 365, and in 200 different languages. We're here to support everyone to cast that vote in November. At United Way of Rhode Island, we believe that each individual in Rhode Island and every Rhode Island community should have equal opportunity for justice and prosperity. The United Way knows that that cannot happen without great partnerships, including the ones in our labor community. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for your partnership for all these years.
Thank you very much, Courtney, and I'll say it because she was a little shy. Every year, the United Way tries to raise money to do these things, and there's ways to do workplace campaigns. Paula keeps us informed of what we're doing, so don't be afraid to be generous. And when the United Way has their campaign this year, let's recognize her presence at our convention by upping the ante a little bit. So that's our commitment. At this time, the chair would like to call to the podium Justin Kelly for the purposes of an introduction. If you hear your name being introduced, you'll be speaking next.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, brothers and sisters, guests. It's my pleasure and honor to be here tonight. My name is Justin Kelly. I am the business representative, organizer, and political director for the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 11 here in the state of Rhode Island. It's my distinct honor tonight to introduce our guest, Peter Nerona. Peter is the Attorney General of the state of Rhode Island. He's a lifelong Rhode Islander and fourth generation Jamestowner. Peter's somebody that I respect greatly as a person and as a labor leader. He's somebody as an elected official who gets it, who understands what it is that our members go through day in and day out. He's put real effort and real time to make sure that his office does the work that needs to be done, to make sure that working families here in the state of Rhode Island have a fair shot. Whether it's something like going through as the United States Attorney, the ongoing heroin and opioid public health crisis, bringing major cases against cartel-linked drug trafficking organizations, engaging in prevention outreach to adults and high schoolers in the state, or going forward and making sure that working class families are going to have affordable energy when our hot summers and cold winters hit us, making sure that the merger that occurred happened in a way that brought value to working families, securing more than $200 million in value for Rhode Island ratepayers during that merger. We're supporting our goals in the Act on Climate and our coalition with Climate Jobs Rhode Island. But most importantly, as a tradesman, let me tell you, Peter understands the issues we face. We're workers who are subjected to predatory employers and forced into the degradation and deprivation of the underground economy. This is the year we're going to make wage theft a felony. My honor, Peter Nerona, come on up. Attorney General of the state of Rhode Island. Thank you.
Justin, thank you so much for that. You know, as I reflected on what I would say tonight, I wanted to begin by talking a little bit about why I go to the Mashusik Cemetery in Central Falls every Labor Day. I go there not just to catch up with George or Pat or Paul or Justin, Frank Flynn, Jim Riley, and a lot of other labor leaders. I go there because we acknowledge on that day the mill workers who died in the Salesville Massacre in 1934. I go there because I am reminded of how important it is to fight for the rights of working men and women every day. I go there because that event inspires me to fight as your Attorney General for working men and women and Rhode Islanders all across this state. You know, when I started out as Attorney General, one of the phrases that I took to heart was, it's the fight that matters. It's less about the wins. Of course, you want to win, but you've got to fight. Because if you don't fight, you can't win. That's why you fight. You fight to win for men and women in Rhode Island every single day. When I came to you and asked for your endorsement 4 years ago, and I am incredibly grateful that you honored me with your endorsement 4 years ago, I said to you that based on our conversations that came before this night then, that I wanted to reinvent the way we did work at the Attorney General's office. I wanted to get us out there on offense. I wanted to fight the way that you fight. So what has that meant over the last 4 years? What has it meant to me, and I hope what has it meant to you? It's meant reinventing our criminal justice system to give nonviolent offenders, as we talked about 4 years ago, a chance to turn their lives around, sometimes get into the trades, get other jobs, and stay out of our criminal justice system. It's good for them, it's good for us. At the same time, going after those individuals that make our lives less safe. Drug traffickers and shooters. And how have we done that? We put together a task force, Central Falls, Pawtucket, Providence Police, ATF, Department of Corrections, to identify shooters, to use data and ballistics evidence to go after them, and we're having great success. What has that meant for our civil division to fight for you, your members, and the people of the state of Rhode Island? This is what it's meant. It's meant going after car dealers that are adding $4,000 to the price of a car in violation of Rhode Island law, so that you and your family members go down there to buy a car, you're getting charged for something they had no right to charge you for. What does it mean in terms of health care? Here's what it means. UNAP is in this room. You know what it means when Prospect bankrupted our hospitals. They put Fatima and Roger Williams in a place where they were in real danger. You stood up to them. Years before I was standing up to them, I joined your fight. It was so important for me to join the fight. Why? Why is it so important to fight? Because had we not stood up, there is no doubt in my mind that those hospitals would be in danger of closing today. That company had run the holding company into the ground. They put $100 million of mortgage debt on those hospitals. We put $80 million in the bank to save those hospitals because it was necessary to fight for Rhode Islanders. That's what the fight means to me. It means fighting for wage theft laws that actually mean something. We brought wage theft cases. We brought them. But we need to make wage theft and misclassification a felony because working men and women around this state are being cheated out of their hard-working, hard-fought, and well-earned wages every single day. You know, there are two ways to be Attorney General, and one way is to let the work come to you. And that is a way that I reject. I reject it based on our conversations. I want to be on offense. I want to fight for you. I'd be honored if I could have your endorsement again this year. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak to you tonight. Thank you very, very much.
I'll be introducing our next speaker, who is James Lathrop, who is the Republican candidate for General Treasurer. James is enlisted in the U.S. Army Reserves. He's a graduate of Bryant University. He has a background in business and finance and has worked as the finance director in Hopkinton, Portsmouth, Westerly School Department, and the City of New London, Connecticut. He is presently part of the corporation of the Centerville Bank and sits on the investment committee of the South Kingston School Trust. So at this time, we would welcome up to the podium James Lathrop.
Thank you. Most of you probably don't know me. I'm Jim Lathrop. I'm running for treasurer. Most of you may not even know what the treasurer's office really does, but it has a huge impact on your life, and it has an importance here in the state of Rhode Island. The treasurer's office manages pensions, many of your pensions. It also manages all the cash and has roles in the Rhode Island Housing Authority, the Rhode Island Health and Education Building Corp., which is known as RIBAC, and the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. It issues and manages debt to improve our infrastructure, build new schools, and provide jobs for hardworking Rhode Islanders. Managing nearly $11 billion in pension assets and billion more on a daily basis should not be done by a career politician. It needs a financial professional who has a track record of success. It needs someone that understands what needs to be done. It needs to be someone who values the hard work of people and what they contribute. People ask me, why am I running? Well, one, the treasurer's office has become a political office that's a stopover for career politicians building their resume. This needs to stop. The second is, it's my money too. My pensions are there. My taxes are impacted by it. Sometimes when you just can't complain, you need to step up. I'm a certified public accountant. I've worked on the private side, and for the past 15 years, I've worked in government. I'm a graduate of Bryant University and NYU. I've had many successes, but I'm wise enough to know that they're not just because of me, it's because of the people around me. Teams are what make success. I'm asking for your support here tonight, but more than that, I'm asking to be part of your team and you be part of my team so that we can improve Rhode Island. Unions are an important part of our workforce. Beyond the quality of the members and the work they provide training opportunities for the next generation of workers. If Rhode Island is to prosper, we must think about our future. I am very fiscally conservative, but I do support our people. That is why I recommended that I would support a local vendor preference initiative that many states have. This allows Rhode Island businesses who are based in Rhode Island, pay taxes in Rhode Island, and employ Rhode Islanders. If they bid on a contract, they have the right to match the low bid and keep the money here in Rhode Island. We have minority set-aside programs here in Rhode Island for veterans and women. We need to have set-asides for union shops. Paying prevailing wages is not enough. If we are committed to the unions, we need to support them. The treasurer's office needs to bring diversity and equality. I will increase the outreach that the treasurers have, address financial literacy, and develop interest in careers in public service and government finance. I will set up a committee to review all government incentives to make sure that the relief is equitable. An example is the car tax. I love that I don't pay car tax anymore, but many people have multiple cars who have higher income and are getting a much larger break than many of the working people who have lower valued of cars. I believe in the value of education. I know the only reason I'm standing here today is because of the quality education I had and the very special teachers that supported me and provided that education to me. We need to support our teachers, and we need to support all school staff. I believe in transparency. I've created a pledge and sign that was picked up by Forbes magazine. They said this is the type of transparency that all government should have. I asked my opponent to sign this pledge with me. Earlier this year, I lost my father due to complications associated with Parkinson. My mother is currently in a care facility. She has Alzheimer's. My family sees what caregivers give, what they provide to us as a family, and as well as what they provided to my parents. It's a difficult job, made more hard by the recent COVID. We need to support them and provide a living wage. As treasurer, I will support a $19 minimum wage incentive. All workers need to save retirement. I will support the AARP's program for Work and Save. This program needs to be expanded, and I believe it's a perfect program to bring into the treasurer's office. I also will expand Rhode Island ABLE, a program that allows individuals to set aside funds for people on disabilities that does not affect their Social Security disability payments. I think it's a great program, and I know that it's lacking staff, and it needs to be promoted more. As you listen to my words, don't think I'm one of those people who give stuff away. I'm still a Republican, I'm still pretty tough. But I am looking for people who want to partner with me. I believe that we all can benefit. I believe in the phrase that a rising tide lifts all ships. Ask yourself, is your life better now than it was 5 years ago? Do you feel better about your future? Do you feel better about your children's future? If the answer is no, vote for change. Go to my website, talk to me. If you call me, you'll probably get me picking up the phone. Ask me. I'll answer you honestly. I built my career on that. And I hope you support my campaign. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those remarks. At this time, the chair would like to recognize, for the purposes of an introduction, Frank Flynn.
Thank you, George. Good evening, brothers and sisters. It's my pleasure this evening to welcome James Diosa, the candidate for Rhode Island General Treasurer, to the House of Labor. James was born and raised in Central Falls, Rhode Island, where his parents immigrated to in the 80s from Medellin, Colombia, seeking the American dream, much like my parents and many of yours. His father worked in a local unionized factory, and he instilled in James the values of hard work, a good education, and the benefits of belonging to a union. Shortly after college, James was elected to Central Falls City Council, where he fought to keep the city's only library and only post office open, two essential components to any successful city. They were threatened by severe budget cuts, and he realized that the city wouldn't be the same without them, and he fought to keep those in the city. In 2012, during the Central Falls bankruptcy, he bravely and successfully ran to become the city's first Latino mayor. He assumed the leadership of the first city to be declared insolvent and inherited an $80 million unfunded pension liability. As a young adult, that was an arduous task. As mayor, he collaborated with the treasurer's office to incorporate the city's pension plan into the municipal employee retirement system of Rhode Island, which has had a lasting impact on that city. His administration stabilized the city's finances, raised the long-term bond rating to investment grade, secured millions of dollars in federal, state, foundation, and private sector donations to keep improving the city's infrastructure and its quality of life. James has, as a young man, James has accomplished very much, and we're sure that if he's elected treasurer, he'll do even more. Please join me in giving a rousing Afl-Cio welcome to James Diosa, the candidate for treasurer of Rhode Island.
Good evening, good evening. Thank you again for the opportunity to address all of you today. As mentioned, my father was in the local union for 33 years, and he was able to achieve the American dream because of that, because he has stability, he had predictability in his job, and was able to build not only a family, but buy our first home that still exists today, but also provide the basic needs so that we didn't miss a meal, nor did we ever have to worry about having a roof over our shoulder. And so that is why I'm here to seek your support, because as treasurer, not only will you have a huge supporter, but you will have a partner in that office that will strengthen the backbone of Rhode Island, which is all of you and the union. So I seek your support, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
At this time, the chair would like to recognize, for the purposes of an introduction, Larry Pirtle. There we go.
Good evening. I'm Larry Pirtle, president of NEA Rhode Island, and I'm proud to introduce tonight our next Secretary of State, Greg Amore. The Secretary of State's job is to protect our voting rights and make them secure for everybody, in addition to being a civics leader and in charge of Rhode Island's archives and history for the state. And I would argue there's never been a more qualified candidate for that position than Greg Amore. Greg is a proud, lifelong resident of East Providence, graduate of EP High School, history degree from Providence College, and a master's in public policy from New England College. He taught history for 27 years in East Providence, and in 2008, he was recognized as the Rhode Island History Teacher of the Year. Committed to public service, Greg ran for state representative in 2012 and has served the residents of East Providence with distinction for the past decade. He has been a leader in the General Assembly as a deputy majority leader before deciding to run for state office this year. In 2021, Representative Amore co-sponsored the law which requires students to demonstrate proficiency in civics education before high school graduation, earning him recognition from the League of Women Voters, who awarded him the Civic Engagement Award. In 21 and 22, Greg called for passage of the Let Rhode Island Vote Act, a bill that would expand access to the ballot by giving people options for casting their ballot in a way that works for them. That bill was passed this year and became effective immediately. Greg understands that when every eligible voter has access to the ballot, we all win. He's a strong member and supporter of NEA, NEA Rhode Island, and the East Providence Education Association. He has and always will stand with working men and women. He knows when unions win, we all win. And with voting rights being assaulted around the country, we need a Secretary of State who will stand up and protect all of us. Brothers and sisters, I'm proud to welcome our next Secretary of State, Greg Amore.
Thank you very much. Larry, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. I'm reminded as a history teacher, as I listen to my friend James Diosa speak, of the 30th President of the United States, Calvin Coolidge, who greeted folks as they came to state dinners, and his nickname was Silent Cal.
And that's because he never said anything. He said, I can't get in trouble if I don't say anything. And that's not to say that James Diosa doesn't say anything. I've listened to him, but James reminded me that I should be brief too. And the Calvin Coolidge story reminds me that we can all be brief. People were waiting in line for the state event. He was greeting them. Two gentlemen in the line were talking, and one gentleman said to the other, I'll bet you $100 I can get him to say more than 2 words. And he said, you're on. And they got to the line. He said, Mr. President, you can make me $100 today. I just bet my friend that I could get you to say more than 2 words. And Coolidge looked at him and said, you lose. So I'll start from here. My life is marked by the labor movement. I walked a picket line with my dad when I was 8 years old for the utility workers, Local 310. 45 years later, I walked a picket line with my daughter at Stop and Shop. In between there, I fought next to my friend Val Lawson when a contract was imposed on teachers in East Providence unfairly. And then, all of our lives are touched by the labor movement. I remember my daughter was in a horrific accident as a freshman in college, and my friends and colleagues here know about this. And we thank God for the doctors, and we thank God that she's fine now, but I can tell you that the nurses at Rhode Island Hospital and in the rehab at Rhode Island Hospital were our saviors. They were the people that did the hard work and made us feel like everything was going to be okay. So from utility workers to teachers to food and commercial workers to nurses, I understand the value of hard work, and I understand the value of labor unions. As a candidate for Secretary of State, I think I should, and as a history teacher, I should draw your attention to the fact that every voting rights initiative post-World War II was supported, and I mean absolutely supported, by organized labor. In fact, by the Afl-Cio. There is not one voting rights initiative, from the Civil Rights Act to the Voting Rights Act to what we passed recently, the Let Rhode Island Vote Act, that was not supported by the labor movement and would not have been enacted without the labor movement. So democracy and organized labor go one and one, and we can go way back to the Porter Union, and I'm not being brief, but these are things that are embedded in the fabric of American democracy. I am incredibly honored to have had the endorsement of the Afl-Cio for every single election I have ever run. Honored. And in the first election in 2012, that was not an easy choice because I was not the candidate of the leadership in the House. I was a newcomer. It was an easier choice in this primary. I'm always honored to have your support. I will be continued to have that honor. Thank you very much.
The chair now recognizes Brother Crowley for the purposes of an introduction.
Thank you, George. Our next speaker is a candidate for Lieutenant Governor. He is the son of a plumber and a respiratory therapist. He currently works at the Rhode Island Foundation as a development officer. He was previously a special assistant to Governor Don Cacciari, but don't hold that against him. Because I remember in my younger days being a little bit, less refined, I guess is a good way to describe it, and frequently up at the State House involved in various shenanigans. And every time that Aaron was sent to go get rid of me, he did it with honor and class. And it doesn't hurt that he is about 1.5 feet taller than me. But I think it helps because when you see him come up here, I thought this was just a great touch. His slogan is leading Rhode Island to new heights. So brothers and sisters, please give an Afl-Cio welcome to Aaron Gokey, candidate for Lieutenant Governor.
Well, I made it. First, I wanted to acknowledge the governor, speaker, and other colleagues in government. I'm really honored to be here. Local 51, the plumbers and steam fitters. People also ask me why I want to run. My mother's a respiratory therapist, and my father was, as I said, a plumber. And, they were like two ships in the night. And a lot of you, you had both parents working. My dad would work at the power plant over in Connecticut. My mother would work sometimes doubles on the ER. And my brother, he went to Colgate, so a lot of times when they had to get us through college, I didn't see him a ton because they were working. The philosophy that I keep going with on this campaign is get up and grind. A lot of times, I'll complain to my father, and I'll say, Dad, this is happening in my life, this is happening, and you know what he always says? Get up earlier, right? Another thing that always used to say is when my dad would moonlight at night, someone would call with a broken toilet or whatever. People would say, well, what do you do? I go, I get the flashlight. And getting the flashlight's important, right? Because you got to shine the light on things. And tonight, I just wanted to shine a light a little bit on my background. I have an MBA, Master's in Business Administration. When I got it, I have 3 daughters. Very proud. My wife is a professor at Johnson & Wales. She went to LaSalle. I'm a Rhode Island guy, grew up in East Greenwich, went through the public schools. I went on to basketball, as George knows, used to play summer league with Pat. I worked at Connecticut, I went to Connecticut College. And it was some tough times. My parents had to really, really grind to get us through the schools. And he told me, if you fail, you got to come back to the local 51. And either way, I would have been proud to do that. In regards to, I'm also a certified teacher. I taught in North Kingstown for a couple years, so I'm in that union for a couple years. And then in the back, I was talking to Eddie back there, I have a master's in music and opera. As many of you know, when I was a special assistant to the governor, 6 weeks into it, we had the station fire. And my mom was a respiratory therapist on that night. And I guess the point is that, you can't rush experience, you can't teach experience. And the biggest thing, and I know the governor knows about this, are you qualified? Are you ready to take over if a governor's elevated or God forbid something happens? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, what's my platform? And I call it the Help Center. Imagine a lieutenant governor that's helping you navigate through the state system. There's so many impediments. When I'm at the market at Dave's Market, an old lady will come up to me and say, Aaron, can you help me with the peas off the top shelf, right? And I'll get it to her. And it's very much like the Help Center. The speaker, we're good friends, we work out sometimes. And something that might take the speaker and I, 1 or 2 minutes, right? Might be call to Mike Sabatoni or whoever it is, right? To get something done, to get something through. Unfortunately, in Rhode Island, there's a lot of barriers to entry. I'm at diners, there's a lot of licenses and fees. Why can't we have a single sign-on across all departments? Have one username and password. And you know what I'll do as Lieutenant Governor? I'll pick up. I'm really looking forward to debating. I think debating is very important for our democracy. And I ask that the appointed Lieutenant Governor debate me consistently throughout these next 50 days. And finally, when I'm the Lieutenant Governor, I really want to advocate for SHOP to get back into our high schools in home ec. I've been going around to different machine shops, and I was talking to the guys over there. I think the average age of a plumber is mid to late 50s. When I talk to kids, they don't know how to read blueprints, right? They don't have the basic skills. And if I was a 12-year-old boy or 13-year-old boy in junior high, I wouldn't know to go to a different school, like one of the technical schools. So I suggest, and what I'll advocate for when elected, is to get SHOP and home ec back in. It's a real honor to be here. I'm privileged. I was lucky to know Paul, George, and I really appreciate the kind words. And, I hope you can vote for me November 8th, and I'd be privileged if you ever gave me the endorsement. So thank you very much for your consideration.
At this time, the chair would like to call up Nancy Ideluca for the purposes of an introduction.
Good evening, brothers and sisters, and distinguished guests. I have the privilege and the honor of introducing our Lieutenant Governor this evening, Sabina Matos. Sabina grew up in the Dominican Republic. At 20, she immigrated to the U.S., lived with her family in New York City, and worked in a clothing factory. Sabina moved to Providence, where she took up English language courses and again worked in a factory, this time in jewelry. If that wasn't enough on her plate, as a single mother, she decided to run for Providence City Council in Ward 15 in 2010. It was my first experience on the doors for a city councilor. Sabina served 10 years on the council, dedicating herself to an equity agenda. Her initiatives took direct aim at the barriers facing Providence households, building houses that hardworking Rhode Islanders can actually afford, supporting women leaders, and protecting reproductive rights. In 2019, Sabina broke a glass ceiling by becoming the first Latina to serve as president of the Providence City Council. As City Council president, Sabina was a steady hand and a guiding force in the crafting and the passage of the 2019 Tax Stabilization Act. We worked on this, many people in this room, too many to count, but labor worked on this for over 15 years. We finally got it passed, and I don't think if Sabina Matos wasn't the council president at the time, we could have done it. But thank you to Sabina Matos. That legislation is meaningful, and it serves as a model for the country. In 2021, then Council President Matos was appointed to serve as Lieutenant Governor of Rhode Island, becoming the first Black Latina person and second woman to hold the state office in the state's history. Without further ado, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce our Lieutenant Governor, Sabina Matos.
All right, I'm sure, so I'm going to put this down, but that has never stopped me. Good evening. I'm honored to have this opportunity to come here and speak to all of you and to ask for your support. As Nancy, thank you for that introduction. Nancy told you about my background and how I got here. But part of the things that I also want you to know is that my mother was a teacher in the Dominican Republic for 17 years. I was a member of the teachers' unions in the Dominican Republic. My sister has been an educator and a teacher here, and also has been a member of the union here in Rhode Island. I know the work that the union has been doing is what's giving us the quality of life that we have right now. As an immigrant that came to this country, as a 20 years old, not knowing the language, going to school to learn English after work, and then eventually being able to go to CCRI, and then go to Rhode Island College and graduate. Go Rick, I cannot help every time to say that. To graduate with a degree from Rhode Island College. They have the opportunity to run for office to represent my community in the Providence City Council. And I have to say, it was not always easy. The first time I ran for office, I didn't win. But I came back and I ran a second time. And I was able to be elected to represent my community, thanks to the union. I saw Nancy is here. She worked on my campaign early on. I saw Stan that is here. Stan was the SEIU that gave me the support also. I was there supporting me early on. Through my work in the city council, I have worked with labor. I have worked with the different unions. I have worked with 1033. I have worked with every labor union that is part of the city because I respect the work that you do, because I know that if we are able to have a quality of life and we're able to have a schedule that is reasonable, at the 8 hours, we get the weekends, all that is because of union. If we didn't have labor, we wouldn't have all of those benefits that we all enjoy, regardless whether you're a union member or no. The Office of Lieutenant Governor does a lot of important work, and every Lieutenant Governor has been able to expand on the work that the office does. I have been taking housing as the priority for my office in this past almost 2 years. And Governor McKee has been a supporter of that initiative and made sure that we included $250 million for housing in the state budget that was approved from the ARPA funding. My office has been working to support the small business in our state and being a voice for the small business community. And I'm looking forward to continue that work. But there is way more that we can do together. I had the opportunity to have meetings with some of you. I have heard some great things that we can do together, and I'm looking forward to doing that work because the Office of Lieutenant Governor is your office. One of the things that I learned, and I saw some of my friends from DOA here that I still miss. I used to work at the Office of Diversity at DOA before being appointed Lieutenant Governor. And one of the things that I always remember is how hard the state workers work. And they don't get enough credit for what they do. The dedication that they put into the work that they do, no one's gives them credit for the work that they do. And I'm looking forward for my office being a true partner with the state workers and making sure that they get the credit that they deserve for the work that they do. As you can see, I could go on and on about the things that I have been able to do working in collaboration with labor. And I will be honored if you will consider to support my re-election campaign for Lieutenant Governor, and if I can count on your support. Thank you.
You must have known I was going to call on him next. He's already in motion. At this time, the chair recognizes Mike Sabatoni for the purposes of an introduction.
All right, good evening, brothers and sisters. We need more of those noisemakers we had here a couple weeks or so ago in this room. Freddie, Joe, go get some out of the back of the truck and we'll start passing them out. So it's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here tonight by the way of an introduction to introduce someone I've had the opportunity to know for over the past 12 years, the current governor of the state of Rhode Island, Governor Dan McKee. Governor Dan McKee was born and raised in Cumberland. He was the former town council member, then the mayor of Cumberland, and I first met Dan when he was running for lieutenant governor. And I can honestly say to you all that I've never met a more genuine, down-to-earth person that just wants to do the right thing for Rhode Island. And I've met a lot of politicians, and a lot of good politicians, but that would explain Dan McKee to you how I know him and how I've grown to know him in his various capacities. So this quick introduction is going to be, I'm not going to do the bio because I've got so much, by the time I'm done, Governor, you won't have to say anything. So this is a check the box speech. This is a get excited speech. This is a get involved speech because elections have consequences. And in the short time that Governor McKee has been governor, he has checked an awful lot of boxes for all of you and our members, and I want you to remember this when you leave this room, to get yourselves energized and your members energized, and we don't take anything for granted, and make sure we give Governor McKee 4 more years at the helm to check more boxes. Those boxes include settling the Providence teacher contract that was lingering, listened and worked with labor to ensure best practices and protocols for our essential workers during our pandemic, worked with labor. This was personal to me as one of the largest unions representing the workers at the Convention Center and the Civic Center, to operate with members that would have been laid off in our entertainment industry, to make test kits, to turn the Civic Center into a vaccination site, the Convention Center into a hospital with our friends and representatives from the building trades, and then into a vaccination site. And quote unquote, by Lieutenant Colonel who visited the state of Rhode Island, I had the opportunity to tour that facility with him, was the best run facility in the country, with union members alongside our National Guardsmen and women. But it didn't stop there. In addition, the current budget plugged a $68 million pension hole for contributions that were lingering, the obligations for decades. Passed a budget with the Senate President and our good friend, the Speaker of the House, working collectively. Isn't that a breath of fresh air? Check the rest of the boxes that are coming up in this next election. Investments in URI, investments in school construction, investments in housing, investments in climate, investments in renewable energy. One of the largest investments by over, tomorrow will start hearings at the PUC, over 1,000 megawatts of new offshore wind that will supply over 400,000 homes the energy it needs as we go into the future. This is a no-brainer, is what I call it. This is exactly the leader that this state needs at this moment in time, and not some rookie that's looking for on-the-job training. My advice is we have apprenticeship programs for that. And one person that does not need an apprenticeship program is our current governor, soon to be re-elected governor, Governor Dan McKee.
Yes, Mike, so thank you, and it's great to be here. I was here a few weeks back, and certainly there was a lot of noisemakers, but tonight's message is just as important. The state of Rhode Island has momentum like we've never seen before, and we're going to keep it. And part of that momentum is working with families to earn a good living. My number one priority, every decision that I will make, and I can say this very loud and clear, every decision that I have made since I've been governor is in the best interest of the people of the state of Rhode Island and no one else. And what do we got to look for? Describe that momentum. Mike did well. The Speaker, Senate President, working together with the governor to provide opportunity that we have never seen before. I came in as governor in the state of emergency that we have never seen before in our lifetime. And what do? We engaged the municipalities. We engaged our nurses, our firefighters, our EMTs, to put shots in the arms of the people in the state of Rhode Island. When I showed up, we had one of the lowest vaccination rates in the country. We had 90,000 doses on the shelf. We activated labor in every community in the state of Rhode Island. Today, we're the very best vaccinated state in the entire country. That's because of our nurses. our EMTs, our firefighters, our National Guard, and all those who worked tirelessly to put us in a position where we reopened our economy. And today, our economy is reopened faster than anywhere in the Northeast, number 2 in the country. What does that mean for us? What it means is that we can invest in our economy. We can invest in the people who live in our state. The budget that I presented and the Speaker and the Senate President made adjustments to, but it came back to me and I was proud to sign it, has 3 to 5 years of economic growth in that budget. And who's going to get the jobs, Mike? That's right. Labor's going to get those jobs. Whether it's helping our fisheries down in Galilee, or whether it's opening our port in Quonset, or it's building a new seaport in East Providence, or it's building a facility in Pawtucket that's going to spur economic development in that community with the Tidewater Project. And who had to vote for that? Who had to put the tie-breaking vote on that? Because I believe that as we put people to work, Rhode Island gets stronger and stronger. And the strategy on that is to build things, to invest in our infrastructure. And when we build things, people go to work. And after we build things, we're going to build things that are important to the state's future. And when those things get built, whether it's in our infrastructure, whether it's in our offshore wind, whether it's in a professional soccer program, and building a bridge over those troubled waters in Pawtucket, it is going to leave us with economic growth in this state for the next 50 years. And that's what we want. And you have to have the courage to actually do the right thing. And we're going to do that. My door is always open. I think there's people in this room that realize that today. What was my first call when I came into office? When I was asked twice in the first 10 days to go to court on the Providence teacher contract, and I said no, because as a member of a town council in town of Cumberland, I was able to settle a long-term problem in a teacher contract, and I knew we could do this in Providence. What was my first call? Frank Flynn. That was my first call. Tell me what's going on. What was my second call? The commissioner. Tell me what's going on. I realized very quickly what needed to be done, and we did it. And when we did it, within 8 weeks, we had a contract. And when the schools opened up in September, guess what? Those students and those families were served in a way that they deserved, because people deserve to have agreements. In this campaign, how many union contracts has my opponent solved? I've done 15. What type of experience does my opponent have, who's just dropped into the state? She hasn't even unpacked her bags. And she has the gall to tell us that our state is not a good place to live in. What type of person is going to do that? And when I was here a few weeks back, I said, I am proud to have you have my back, because I've got your back. My opponent doesn't have your back. My opponent doesn't care about the state of Rhode Island. I don't know what she cares about. Why did she move to this state? Maybe it was an $11 million contract for COVID that brought her to this state. I think that's what brought her to this state. Why is she still in this state? She is going to spread lies about me and my family that hurt us. And she's going to try to have people believe things that are not true about me. I'll tell you what's true. I love this state. and I'm going to do everything in my power to work with you, to work with the Speaker, to work with the Senate President, to work with our municipal leaders, to work with our small businesses, to work with our schools. Our state's future is bright. And if anything in this campaign, if someone tells you that it's not, you tell that individual that flew in from Illinois to tell us what is good for our state to hit the road. To hit the road. So I stand here asking you for your support again. And keep that support coming. And I want you to know that my door is always open. And if somebody has a good idea to help the state of Rhode Island, I'm going to listen. And that idea is going to be implemented. So please, I ask for your support, continued support. I ask you to support the Democrats that won in the primary, each and every one of them, from our Lieutenant Governor to our Treasurer to our Secretary of State, and again to Peter Monona. It's a good team, and a team that's going to get things done. And I can tell you right now, we're going to get things done. So thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate it very much you listening to me, and let's get it done in November. Thank you.
This time, the chair would like to recognize Brother Dan Bianco for the purposes of an introduction.
George just said us laborers, we always know where to go. We're ready to go. So as you can see, the governor got us started. Michael got us started. We're going to keep on the same theme. And I know our next speaker will keep the energy in this room going. So good evening, President Nee, Secretary Treasurer Crowley, PCFC President McDonald, distinguished guests, fellow delegates, brothers and sisters. Thank you for the opportunity to address the 2002 Rhode Island Afl-Cio COPE Convention. As George said, my name is Dan Bianco, a proud 32-year member of Local Union 271 of the Laborers International Union of North America. Tonight it is my great honor to stand before you with the distinct purpose to introduce a leader who is not only a true friend to us in labor, but to all of us in Rhode Island. Throughout his career, General Treasurer Seth Magaziner has proven himself to be a tenacious and tireless fighter for the state and for improving the lives of all Rhode Island families. As our General Treasurer since 2014, Seth has been a treasurer who has always had labor's back. Treasurer Magaziner, under his Back to Basics investment plan, made sure that workers' retirements were protected first and foremost. He led the state pension fund to an all-time high of $10.79 billion in January of 2022, as it outperformed 98% of public pension plans over the last year. And further proving his commitment to the working families of Rhode Island, as chair of the State School Building Task Force, a plan was proposed to invest more than $2 billion in Rhode Island public school buildings over 10 years. All, I may add, with responsible contracting language. Treasurer Magaziner, leading this statewide school initiative, created over 28,000 jobs and repaired, replaced, or constructed over 200 schools, such as Garden City Elementary School in Cranston, the soon-to-be completed Combined Elementary School in Johnston, and the state-of-the-art East Providence High School, all under project labor agreements. Seth Magaziner understands labor. He has our back, and he has produced time and time again for the working families of our state. We have heard these phrases before. Elections have consequences, and this is an election of a lifetime. This could not be truer than this race for Congress in District 2. Treasurer Magaziner has proven himself to be a fighter for the ideals on which the labor movement has been built: fairness, hard work, commitment to family, and the pledge to build a better life for all. He is here with us tonight because he wouldn't want to be anywhere else. He is here with the hard-working men and women of the Rhode Island Afl-Cio, the people who built this state and continue to help make our state thrive. Meanwhile, earlier today, his opponent, Alan Fung, was with the Chamber of Commerce, celebrating their endorsement, relying on the support of his MAGA Republican friends like Kevin McCarthy. Alan Fung is content with the backing of those who continually tear down the ideals and foundations of working families. This is not what we are about in this room. This is not what Seth Magaziner is about, and that is not what we are about in the state of Rhode Island. We need leaders like Seth Magaziner, who stands with the unifiers and the builders like you here tonight. A man who looks to continue the legacy of leaders like James Langevin, who consistently and tirelessly worked on behalf of Rhode Island working families in Washington, D.C. Brothers and sisters, I ask you to continue Seth on his journey. Let him continue to fight to secure good-paying jobs for our members as we continue on the path of prosperity. I know when elected, he will be our voice in Congress, a voice for working families and a tireless advocate for all Rhode Islanders. Let us come together tonight in solidarity, brothers and sisters. One union, one vote. It is an honor and a privilege to introduce to you a rising star, our next United States Congressman from District 2, Seth Magaziner.
Well, good evening, Afl-Cio. How are we doing? I want to thank each and every one of you. I want to thank George and Pat and Paul and everyone from the Afl-Cio leadership for having this event. I want to thank my friend Dan Bianco, a great leader in his own right, for that very kind introduction. Thank you to the men and women here at Twin River for serving us tonight. And thank you to each and every one of you for devoting your lives and your careers for standing up for working people. You should all be proud of yourselves for what you do. Thank you. Now, I would not be here if it was not for the labor movement. My grandfather, his name was James McKee. He was the son of Irish immigrants. He grew up in Worcester, Massachusetts, right up the road. Grew up in the Depression with nothing. He was a U.S. Marine. He went and fought in World War II. He saw them raise the flag at Iwo Jima. He came home and he got a job as a steel worker at a company called Wyman Gordon that made airplane parts up in Worcester. With that job, a union job, he was able to buy a house. He was able to put 4 kids through college. He was able to build a middle-class life for himself and his kids, including my mother. When people ask me why I support unions, it's because I would not be here on this stage if it were not for the labor movement. I would not be here if it were not for unions. I would not be here if it were not for men and women like each and every one of you who stand up for workers. That is why I stand with the labor movement today and forever. So, my mother was an Irish Catholic girl from Worcester. My father was a Jewish kid from New York City. So people ask me sometimes, Seth, what religion were you raised in? And the answer is simple, Democrat. Because time and time again, the Democratic Party has stood up for working people. It was Democrats in Congress that passed the minimum wage, that created Social Security, that created Medicare, that created Medicaid, that time and time again have stood up, that's passed the Affordable Care Act against unified Republican opposition. And today, more than ever, we need Democratic leadership here in Rhode Island with this great slate of candidates led by the governor, and in Congress to stand up for working people as they have for the last century. So, I am proud to be a candidate for Congress here in Rhode Island on the Democratic ticket because there is so much at stake in this election. Make no mistake about it, there is a real contrast in this race for the 2nd Congressional District. Earlier today, my Republican opponent took an endorsement from not the Providence Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, different things. They're not affiliated with each other. What is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce? It is a group of corporate lobbyists in Washington, D.C. Their #1 legislative priority is opposing something called the PRO Act, a labor-friendly bill in Congress that I proudly support that would prevent employers from harassing people who want to start a union. That's their number one priority, is stopping the PRO Act. And my Republican opponent proudly stood with them this morning and accepted their endorsement. Well, you know what? He can have it. I am proud to be standing with each of you and your members for working people. And working people need help, now more than ever. After sustained attacks from the right, working people need help. People need help keeping up with the cost of health care. Democrats in Congress just passed something called the Inflation Reduction Act, which caps the cost of prescription drugs. Not a single Republican vote. Alan Fung said he would have been against it too. Why? Well, I'm sure it's because the pharmaceutical companies that fund the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and fund those Republican campaigns were against that bill. The Affordable Care Act. My Republican opponent, Alan Fung, came out against the Affordable Care Act as a mayor. Why did he even need to weigh in as a mayor against the Affordable Care Act? Said it should be repealed. Understand what would happen if Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans take control of Congress and they repeal the Affordable Care Act. 70,000 Rhode Islanders would lose their health insurance on day one. Rhode Islanders with pre-existing conditions would be at risk of losing their health care. Remember how that used to be before the Affordable Care Act, where you could have health insurance and then get sick and lose your insurance? What's the point of having insurance if you lose it when you get sick? But that's the way it used to be. And Kevin McCarthy led the charge to repeal the Affordable Care Act. They're going to try to do it again. Kevin McCarthy, who Alan Fung has said should be the next Speaker of the House, was a co-author of the plan to cut Social Security. Social Security, which is the bedrock of livelihood for seniors and for those with disabilities. Those are not the values of our state. Those are not the values of working people. The minimum wage. Alan Fung opposed raising the minimum wage in Rhode Island from $7 to $8 and $8 to $10.10 and $10.10 to $15. You don't get to complain about inflation when you oppose raising the minimum wage for working people who are struggling to get by. So do not forget who it is who has the back of working people. It is not the Republicans in Congress with their corporate donors. It is the Democratic majority that we have to maintain. We do not keep a Democratic majority in the House of Representatives if we do not keep CD2 in Democratic control. So I need your help. I need your help because so much is at stake. Social Security, health care, wages, the right to organize, all on the ballot. Reproductive choice on the ballot too. And this is a labor issue. Listen to me now. Teachers, firefighters, anyone here who represents librarians, nurses, listen to me for a minute. Alan Fung has said he's okay with it sometimes in some limited situations because he thinks it should be his choice, not the woman's choice when it's okay or not. But one of the things he says he is not okay with, in no uncertain terms, is that there should not be any taxpayer funding. That's what he says. Understand what that means. What that means is that if you represent public employees, teachers, librarians, firefighters, and their daughters were raped, their daughters needed to end a pregnancy, they would not be covered. You'd have to pay out of pocket, lots of money. Oh, the U.S. Chamber lobbyists, their daughters would be fine. Not only would they be fine, they'd be insured. The Mar-a-Lago crowd, their kids would all be insured. But the kids of firefighters, the kids of librarians, the kids of school bus drivers, in Alan Fung's world, well, no, that just doesn't fly. Because it's his choice in his world that that's not okay. This is a labor issue. So this is what's at stake in this election. The differences could not be more significant. So, like the governor said, they're going to attack me because they don't want people to focus on what they're going to do to you. That's the message we have to get out. And you know what? Have at it. This is the fight that I could not be more excited to be in. This is the fight for families like my grandfather's. This is a fight for all of those in Rhode Island who are working, who are scraping by, who want to believe that if they work hard and they do the right thing, there is a good life here for them in this country too. We can do this. We can do this. We can keep this seat. We can keep the Congress. We can pass the PRO Act. We can expand the Affordable Care Act, not cut it. We can protect fundamental rights in this country, not turn back the clock. But it's going to take all of us working together in solidarity to get the job done. So for the next 7 weeks, I need each of you to dig deep. We have got to knock on every door. We have got to make every phone call. We have got to text everyone in the 2nd Congressional District and across the whole state of Rhode Island to elect this slate of candidates. Member-to-member communication is what is going to win these races. So together, I know you know how to get the job done because you find a way to do it time and time again. Together, we are going to keep this seat, we are going to keep the Congress, and we're going to continue this fight for working people in Rhode Island and across this country. Thank you all very much for everything that you do.
I'm going to introduce the next speaker, who is one of us. Long-standing member of Local 271 of the Laborers Union, Senator Dominic Ruggiero. You know, I was thinking, you know, a lot of legislation he's got passed, but really, when I think of Donnie, really what it comes down to is Senator Ruggiero is a pro-union guy, but he's also a pro-business guy, and a pro-jobs guy, and a pro-growth guy. And you know, that combination is a wonderful thing to have in a leader, because it's okay to have all those things. And if we could get some of our business leaders to understand you can be pro-business, you can be pro-growth, you can also be pro-union and pro-labor. And Donnie has done that through his whole career. And behind the scenes, there's a lot of business people that have come to the conclusion he gets more done by having that vision and understanding of what makes a great economy. What we've been doing lately under his leadership, climate jobs, is coming forward now. Renewable energy, things that we had thought before would never happen. With the leadership that is now with Senator Ruggiero, the governor, and our speaker, we're making a lot of progress. So with that, I bring before you our brother, Dominic Ruggiero, Senate President.
Thank you very much, George. And I want to thank George, and I want to thank Pat, and I want to thank their staff for what they do each and every day. And every 2 years we have this convention, and they've done a great job. I've worked with George for, I can't count the number of years at the State House. He's always up there. The same thing with Patrick. I just want to thank them for the efforts that they put forth on people who work for people who work for a living in the state of Rhode Island. So thank you very much for both of you. You're absolutely two great individuals. I'm here for two reasons. I'm here for a reason of gratitude and also for encouragement. I want to thank you all for the support that you've given me, not only myself, but also my colleagues in the Senate who make a difference. I wish I could say and take credit for everything that happens up there, and I certainly can't because I work with mostly wonderful people. These are people that want the state to grow. These are people that want to provide opportunities and job opportunities for people that they represent and for the families of the state of Rhode Island. So I want to thank you for all you do, for people that, not only union people that work, but because there's always a fallout afterwards. When you do something for union contracts, those people who are not union members, they also benefit. They also benefit. So I want to thank you very much for what you do each and every day. I want to thank you, for what you did for me last week. For the past 2 years, I've been I've been a little irritable. I didn't think I did as well as I should have 2 years ago, but you made a significant difference this year, and you really showed the people what you really were all about. I'm immensely proud to be the titular head of the Senate. We've done some great things in the past 2 years under very difficult circumstances, and I certainly want to recognize the people that I've worked with, Governor McKee, Lieutenant Governor Mattos, my good friend, the Speaker of the House. We did some amazing things in the past 2 years that we are immensely proud of. We cut taxes. We have an inflation situation right now. A lot of people were out of work, but we felt that what we had to do at this point in time was cut taxes and give some people relief. Gas prices were ridiculous. A lot of people criticized us for not giving relief on the gas tax in the state, but when you looked at everything that happened, none of the states that got rid of their gas tax felt the savings at the pump. Now, someone swallowed that money. I would have to think it's either big oil or the retailers, but that money went somewhere, but it certainly did not go into the pockets of the motoring public. So I want to thank my colleagues for what they do each and every day. And the previous speakers, and I certainly don't want to repeat what they said, we are on the precipice of greatness in this state. We are a coastal community. We are going to be looking at green jobs and blue jobs, and I think we have a great opportunity in the state. And working together with the governor, with the administration, with the speaker, with the House members, with my Senate colleagues, we are going to be very successful. And I know that we have the opportunity to basically bring Rhode Island back to where it was during the Industrial Revolution. So I want to thank everyone, not only for being here, and I certainly want to mention some of the things that we did. For years, the Senate has been trying to increase minimum wage, and with the new speaker, we finally got that. We made investments in child care workers, which is very important. We gave tax credits to people who are using child care for their children. And we have been on the forefront of what we've been promoting and looking to accelerate universal pre-kindergarten. So that's just a few of the things. The press called me the other day. They said, what do you have in store for the upcoming year? I said, we have unfinished business. We have unfinished business in housing. We have unfinished business in the economy. We have unfinished business in a whole bunch of things. But what we were really hell-bent on this year was making sure the most needy people in the state of Rhode Island had the resources to get along and to make their lives a little better. So I'm immensely proud. I look at the healthcare system in the state. I'm concerned. You got two hospitals that were proposing of closing, and I want to thank the Attorney General for his actions on that, and we have to keep that going. So there's a lot of work that has to be done. The election is coming up. I'm supporting a lot of my candidates, a lot of my colleagues who are candidates, and I hope you do the same thing. So I want to thank you, number one, for inviting me here. I've come to this convention on numerous occasions as a delegate. I certainly enjoy being here as a guest, but I want to thank you all for what you do, not only for your members, but for what you do for the people of Rhode Island each and every day. And I wish the candidates the best of luck, and please, I want to encourage you to go out and register some people, because there's a lot of people out there that still are not registered to vote. So I want to express my thanks and also encourage you to continue doing what you're doing. And thank you all very much. Stay well and healthy, and thank you very much for your time and attention.
You're always welcome. You know that. Chair recognizes Brother Crowley for the purposes of an introduction.
Thank you, George, and thank you, Senate President Ruggiero. And as Courtney just reminded me as you were concluding the remarks, today is National Voter Registration Day. So if you have any of your members that are not registered to vote, make sure you get them registered to vote in time to vote in the general election this November. Because we need to send the Donnie Ruggieros of the world back. We need to get Dan McKee in there. We need to get all of our candidates back into office. Now, it's my honor to introduce our last guest speaker of the night. And the person I'm going to introduce is someone I've come to know as a friend over the last several years. And I got to tell you, The most interesting thing about this guy is this. Leadership has its privileges, right? You set up an event like this, you have to schedule when people are going to talk, and you kind of go up the food chain a little bit, and they get to decide, no, I'd rather go at this time, I'd rather go first, I'd rather go here. This person asked to go as late as possible. And you want to know why? Because he needed to go out and knock doors. He needed to go out and canvass in the neighborhoods of House District 23, where he lives. And I got to tell you, I went out with him a couple of times. He actually had me drive. I had to get my Teamster card off of withdrawal so I could drive his car around for the night. He was out there like any rookie candidate, bounding up the doors, finding people while they're still getting out of their cars before they got home into the house, making sure that the signs were placed at just the right spot, and making sure that every single person that was out there, he got a chance to talk to. My favorite part was when he put one of the signs right on the corner of the street when his opponent would have to drive out there every single day and see his sign, and the smile on his face when he was doing it was priceless. That's the energy that Joe Sakachi brings to this office. And he has been, and he will continue to be, the most pro-labor Speaker of the House of Rhode Island's Representatives in my lifetime, and I hope going forward for as long as he's willing to serve. Brothers and sisters, please welcome up to the stage Joe Sakachi, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Wow, what an introduction. You're telling all my campaign secrets. But thank you, and thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And Patrick is right. He's been out with me a couple of times, and I appreciate that. And I got some prepared remarks, but before I want to do that, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to my friends in labor who've been there. I had a campaign last week. We did very well. It doesn't happen alone. It happens with a team effort, and I had a great team. And my team is right here. And my team is right there out there with all of you. Yeah, my friends and the laborers as well, absolutely. All of you, I can go down the list. SEIU, Council 94, UNAP. I'm so proud to enjoy, and there's probably many others that Justin, the Painters Union. I mean, there's so many, I can go on and on, the carpenters, everybody. I appreciate all the help and support. It means the world to me. But not only to me, to my membership. We were under siege. The Senate was under siege, so was the House. It's no secret. We had tough opponents, and we came through strong, very strong, with the help of labor. And I don't forget that. And I want to say thank you. I really mean that sincerely. I'll talk about our candidates in a minute, but I want to thank George Nee, Patrick Crowley, and all union officials. Rhode Island would not be in this strong position without the great and hardworking members of the Afl-Cio. Labor is the true backbone of our state economy. We have a great ticket. That ticket respects and supports labor. I hope you will join me in supporting our entire Democratic ticket, from top to bottom. I have been proud to work with my good friend, the Senate President, Donnie Ruggiero, to put forth together, in collaboration, a great agenda that supports the hard-working people of Rhode Island. I want to cite a few examples of working together with my friends in the Senate and our governor. We permanently eliminated the car tax, allowing all of you to keep more money in your pockets. We adopted a tax credit of $250 per child for working families. We invested $250 million in affordable housing. That's $250 million. Thank you. We increased nursing home staffing levels to better protect the health and welfare of our patients and our workers. We invested $45 million in our hospital systems in Rhode Island and another $6 million in workforce development, also at our hospitals. This led to Care New England remaining independently owned and preserving thousands of union jobs that may have been jeopardized. As Patrick said, we passed the Act on Climate, making Rhode Island a national leader for the environmental protection and creating many new good-paying green jobs. We invested in the Key, South Key in East Providence, to create a birthplace for offshore wind that we will see dividends for generations to come. We will be the leader on the East Coast. That's significant for our environment, but also for good-paying jobs in Rhode Island. We are looking at long-term investments. Some people call them handouts or union payoffs. No, don't make that mistake. Those are investments. Some of us in this room won't see these investments, but generations of hard-working Rhode Islanders will. The next generation will benefit. We'll have a stronger, healthier economy, more diverse to meet the challenges of the future, and we will protect our environment so we have this unique and beautiful state to call home and continue to call home. We enacted $15 minimum wage. I'm proud of that, and we did it in our first term. And finally, let me conclude by saying, yes, we adopted agreement right here at Bally's, Twin River, with IGT that keeps these two great corporations in Rhode Island for the next 2 decades. The legislature worked on all these issues and many more with Governor McKee and the whole team here tonight. Please encourage your family, your friends, your co-workers, all to vote. The elections aren't over, they've just begun. We're going to work hard, we're going to bring good things back to Rhode Island, and we can only do that by working together. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you, buddy. Good job. Thank you. I almost said you were not my favorite league. I said he's not my favorite. Oh, yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you can say that. At this time, the chair would like to recognize Fletcher Fisher at one of the mics. Fletcher is the business manager for Local 1228, IBEW, and is having some difficulties with Channel 10 that he wanted to bring to the attention of the delegates.
Thank you, George. Thanks for this opportunity to bring some bad news about Channel 10. They're owned by the Sinclair Corporation. Anybody hear about the Sinclair? It's Donald Trump's favorite network, more so than Fox. We've been in negotiations with them for just about 3 months now, but their proposals to us on wages is, we'll give you something maybe. We're not sure if we will or we won't. They won't give us wage progression. They won't give us a fixed income, a fixed increase year after year. And in the last 12 months, 27 people have left Channel 10. Why? Terrible wages, terrible working conditions. I'll give you another example of what they did with their news director. They did not do the legwork to prepare for the primaries this past time. They didn't go out and set up the technicians so they would succeed covering the primaries because they figured they didn't want to spend any more overtime. So I'm here tonight with our president, Don O'Sullivan, who's been a photographer for Channel 10 for 4 decades. He stuck a camera in every one of your faces, trust me. What we're going to ask in the next week or so is all the politicians that are going to be asked by Channel 10 to do one-on-one interviews with them to say, no, thank you. We'll do an interview with you and tell this to your news director because it's going to be our reporters and our photographers that are talking to you. Tell your news director we'll do that one-on-one interview when you do a good deal for the union workers at the station, and not until then. It's a shame that people are leaving this station because it's the #1 station for so many. All of you grew up with Channel 10, all right? And it was owned by a lot of different people. The people that own it right now are horrible employers, and they're doing the same thing around the country. So thanks for the moment to let me explain our situation, and we'll be in touch with all of you politicians soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fletcher. At this time, the chair recognizes Nancy Idaluca, chair of the Credentials Committee, for the Credentials Report.
Before Nancy steps up, if someone lost a pair of sunglasses, just come see me after the meeting's over.
And I couldn't agree with Channel 10 more. Idaluca's a uncommon name, and my daughter Lindsay Idaluca is one of those 27 people that said no to toxicity and left Channel 10. Mr. Chairman and delegates, this is the final Credential Committee report. As of this report, 142 delegates and 39 alternates have registered for this convention. These delegates represent 44 local unions. I move the delegates be seated for the transaction of convention business.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. At this time, the chair recognizes Mike Sabatoni, chairman of the Resolutions Committee.
All right, the over-under is 13 minutes, so let me see what I can do. So, brothers and sisters, President Nee, Secretary Treasurer Crowley, this represents the report of the Resolutions Committee. I'd like to thank the attendees today that we convened at 1:15 this afternoon. Myself, Matt Gunnip, Justin Kelly, Dominic Pontarelli, Denise Robinson, and Joe Walsh Jr. There are 13 resolutions, and I will present them to the convention now. First, resolution number 1 in your packet, prevailing wage. Therefore, be it resolved that the Rhode Island Afl-Cio strongly supports the Rhode Island prevailing wage law and the provisions it affords to workers, taxpayers, and members of the public who use publicly financed facilities and/or projects. And the committee moves passage to resolution number 1. Second to you, number 1. All in favor? Aye. Well, what do we need you for then? You must have the under. Resolution number 2, voter initiative. Whereas initiative proposals have become in modern society a misleading tool of wealthy eccentrics and special interests, and voter initiative is a separate track for passing legislation which takes lawmaking out of the hands of elected officials and puts it in the public arena. Therefore, be it resolved, the Rhode Island Afl-Cio strongly opposes voter initiative proposals, and the committee moves passage. You heard a motion or a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 3, whereas Rhode Island provides $1.5 million worth of corporate tax subsidies for business that donate money to private school scholarship funds, and private school advocates have previously proposed that parents receive a tax credit for education expenditures for private and public schools. Therefore, be it resolved, the Rhode Island Afl-Cio opposes public subsidies of private schools. The General Assembly should fund public education institutions so that they may provide education to all Rhode Island students eligible to attend. The Rhode Island Afl-Cio opposes the creation of education tax credits or school vouchers. The Rhode Island Afl-Cio opposes the expansion of corporate tax credits for private school scholarship organizations. The committee moves for passage. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 4. Therefore, the Rhode Island AFL-CIO's contract continuation supports legislation to preserve all rights and benefits and collective bargaining agreements for state employees, all college and university employees, including the University of Rhode Island, in addition to municipal police officers and firefighters. The committee moves passage. Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 5, maintaining time and a half law for Sunday and holidays. Whereas the Rhode Island AFL-CIO supports Rhode Island's current law, Rhode Island General Law 5-23-2, that provides for mandatory time and a half pay for all workers who work on Sunday or holidays. Therefore, be it resolved, the Rhode Island AFL-CIO strongly believes that the current law should remain in full force and effect. In addition, granting workers time and a half pay for work performed on Sunday or holidays should be separate and apart from any discussion on the increase in the minimum wage or change the workplace standards or laws. The committee moves for passage. Motion was made. Do I hear a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 6, therefore be it resolved that the Rhode Island AFL-CIO strongly supports employee misclassification and wage theft for workers being misclassified as independent contractors when they are truly employees. The Rhode Island AFL-CIO strongly supports hiring as many full-time investigators as needed so that the Intra-Agency Misclassification Task Force can eliminate misclassification. The Rhode Island AFL-CIO strongly supports legislation and policy to ensure that certified payroll is filed online, streamlining the process of ensuring prevailing rate is paid accurately to all workers. Finally, the Rhode Island AFL-CIO strongly supports legislation to make wage theft a felony for amounts exceeding $1,500 and would make misclassification a felony. The committee moves passage. Motion was made, seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 7, apprenticeship utilization legislation. Therefore, be it resolved, the Rhode Island AFL-CIO supports the enhancement of an apprenticeship utilization policy. A stronger apprenticeship law can be used as an economic engine to train a young workforce to develop a career in construction and related fields. In addition, a properly trained workforce will allow the state to get a better return on its investment in major public works projects, and the committee moves passage. Motion made. Do I hear a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 8, lead pipe remediation, statewide plan. Therefore, the Rhode Island AFL-CIO strongly supports protecting Rhode Island families from devastating effects of lead exposure in drinking water. The Rhode Island AFL-CIO strongly supports legislation and policy to create a statewide plan to ensure Rhode Island utilizes federal monies earmarked for the removal of full lead service lines promptly and efficiently. The Rhode Island AFL-CIO strongly supports legislation to require prevailing rate is paid to all workers on these projects, and the Rhode Island AFL-CIO strongly supports legislation to require apprenticeship utilization component for all contractors and subcontractors bidding on projects over $1 million, and the committee moves passage. Motion was made. Do I hear a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 9, H-2B visa requirements. Therefore, be it resolved, the Rhode Island AFL-CIO strongly supports legislation and/or regulations that all H-2B visa applicants for the construction industry related jobs must demonstrate a specific industry-related skill by an industry standard equivalency or enter an industry-registered pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship program as a condition of employment. In addition, all H-2B visa applicants must demonstrate related skill and industry standard equivalency as a condition of employment inclusive of compensated industry standard wages. And the committee moves passage. Motion was made. I heard a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 10, renewable energy and a just transition. Therefore, be it resolved, the Rhode Island AFL-CIO is committed to transitioning Rhode Island to a green economy, but in a way that protects Rhode Island tradesmen and women that are currently working in the energy industry. Furthermore, it is resolved that the Afl-Cio strongly supports the approval of 1,000 megawatts renewable energy offshore wind farm now before the State Public Utilities Commission, and the committee moves passage. Motion was made. Do I hear a second? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 11, MBE and WBE membership diversity. Therefore, be it resolved, the Rhode Island Building Trades and the Rhode Island Afl-Cio strongly supports initiatives that increase career and business opportunities for Rhode Island building trade workforce and existing WBE and MBE construction companies within the state, including strongly advocating for financial literacy guidance, access to capital, minimizing unreasonable regulatory hurdles that will enhance the development and utilization of these companies within the construction industry in the state of Rhode Island. And the committee moves passage. Motion was made. Do I hear a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 12, Public Health and Safety Workplace. Therefore, be it resolved, the Rhode Island Afl-Cio supports legislation that provides the same workplace secondhand smoke safety protections for employees at the state pari-mutuel facilities as elsewhere, and the committee moves passage. Motion was made. Do I hear a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution number 13, passage of the bond questions. Therefore, be it resolved, the Rhode Island Afl-Cio recommends passage of each of these bond questions, and that Rhode Island Afl-Cio is authorized to communicate and support for passage of these bond questions to our affiliated organization and members across Rhode Island. That the Afl-Cio encourages each affiliated organization to also communicate to their members about the importance of the passage of each of the three bond questions. URI, $100 million. $250 million in schools and $50 million for environmental and recreational purposes. And the committee moves passage. Motion was made. I heard a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, that will conclude the report of the Resolutions Committee.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike. Was it over or under? Under, okay. At this time, we will take up the endorsement of candidates. Let me just explain how this process works. We have a process where the candidates are asked to come to our executive committee, which is 15 people, and for an interview, and that has taken place. The recommendations of the endorsements then go to the executive board, which met earlier today. So at this time, the final say belongs to the delegates at this convention. So we have the recommendations, and then at this stage of the game, we will take up a vote. So the recommendation of the executive committee and the executive board for the office of Attorney General is for Peter Nerona, and the chair will entertain a motion to that effect. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. The motion carries, and this organization will endorse Peter Nerona. The executive committee and executive board are recommending the endorsement of James Diosa for treasurer. The chair will entertain a motion from the floor. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. The Afl-Cio has just endorsed James Diosa for treasurer. For the office of Lieutenant Governor, the Executive Committee and Executive Board are recommending to the delegates the endorsement of Sabina Matos. Is there a motion? Second? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The organization is on record as supporting Sabina Matos for Lieutenant Governor. And at this time, we have the Executive Board previously have endorsed Seth Magaziner for CD Congress in the 2nd District, My wife is going to kill me if I say that other word, CD2. For Secretary of State, Greg Amore. For Governor, Dan McKee. And for U.S. Congress in the 1st District, David Cicilline. So the chair will now entertain a motion to reaffirm those endorsements by the convention. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. All right, those endorsements are now in place. Thank you very much. Well, that's it. I just want to say 2 quick things in closing. One is, great job tonight. Everyone was very respectful. We heard some terrific speeches from our endorsed candidates and other candidates who came before us. We should be proud that this organization has the respect that people want our endorsement. That's very important. This is the first step. This is just getting started. It's going to take the collective effort of everybody here to make sure that when we endorse somebody, we mean it, we deliver on it, and they get elected. Because just getting an endorsement here doesn't mean that much if they don't win the elections. So the work begins. You people know how to do it. We're going to have to knock on doors. We're going to have to make calls. We're going to have to get mailings out. We're going to have to do member-to-member activity. You know how to do it. So that's very, very important. And secondly, just listening to the resolutions and the issues that came before you today, I always take pride in saying that the Afl-Cio and the Rhode Island Afl-Cio is the people's lobby. When we lobby for the issues that you just adopted here, they benefit everybody in Rhode Island, and we should be proud of that. We should be proud of the issues that we fight for, and we should hold our head high because we are the people's lobby. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you very much. Let's go forward. We got it done, huh? Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments.